Hate to do it in his browser, but just gonna pull up a couple things. Um, so welcome everybody. So um, I just came back from a group and thought I'd chat about it, and we can talk about what's good about your day or what can we make good about your day. Um, um, but basically, yeah. And the dog, I mean, he's been up in the grate, and I have something to give him, but yeah, he's gonna start. So just a moment. And I'm actually I do have a water here, but even though I thought it was a cold one, it doesn't seem to be. So let me just get one. Yeah, you're gonna be noisy now, Sonny. Here you are. Okay. Things just it's very warm here, and I was adding it to room temperature water. So I'm just kind of getting resituated here. So I was at a group today. Sonny, focus on what I gave you and don't be noisy. I'm talking to our dog. I was at a group today, and I made some notes. And sometimes it really does make sense. I don't know if the only other thing I forgot is some. Actually, no, it's in this pocket, I believe. Um, to do things in kind of sequential order, um, especially if you haven't made notes, but kind of anyway. I mean, and I don't know, maybe there is something to the sequence of things. Like, I don't think it was today, actually, but a day or so ago. You don't want to? Yeah, I know you're standing there quietly, but you don't want to have to go back up there, eh, Sonny? You were up there in that room while I was out, so good boy, good boy. Get lay on the couch. At least he's thinking about it. But yeah, so basically, I was thinking about well, oh my goodness, and in the moment, sometimes we don't even the most aware and hyper aware person won't necessarily notice everything. And basically, so the group I was at was for a specific health condition, but it was also very freestyle. Like, she had a bit of a she had an activity, and they were asked about activities. That they it seemed like I wasn't the only newbie, although one sounds like she'd been a couple times and then hadn't been for a while. One had only been in the place a couple times, and so same with me. And yeah, I certainly wasn't the only newbie, and it can vary apparently. But yeah, basically, I like to have a bit of background noise, so hopefully it's not too noisy. It's not doesn't seem very noisy. So yeah, a few days ago, a day or two ago, I actually had a very interesting, as people that follow the channel will know. I'm a medium, mostly with my own loved ones. I mean, I'm happy to help others and help find healing, and I'm still human, and grief is still hard, and sometimes it's not super as active as I would like, but I definitely do have a gift, and I've seen that and seen what it can do for me and for others, and I know of other people that have the gift as well, and so I had a very interesting kind of visitation from somebody who I wasn't all that close with. Um, when I moved out of my mother's home, I moved into a hotel. It was so ironic because I'd kind of known of somebody. I don't think I met him until after this, though, um, at a group actually, who had lived in this hotel for quite a while. Lived with and I actually when I was having a placement before, I kind of started to have some struggles and navigating through life. I'd heard about one or two people that have lived in hotels, and I thought, well, that's interesting. I mean, staying in one every now and then. I mean, but anyway, so basically, and he'd also lived on another street that I lived on, but I didn't know him then, and I'm not really in touch with him anymore. But anyway, um, the place where I know the loved one who passed away of the condition that, I mean, it's a general health center in some ways too, and they work with minorities and this and that. Um, and I might just have to use this for a moment because I don't know. I feel like my neck's gonna be a little bit sore if I don't. Um, basically, and I also went to karaoke nights at this place, and that's where I knew this person. And so they had somebody that worked the front desk. Well, they had a few people, and I can kind of remember at least three of them. There may have only been about three, but anyway, and one of them has since passed away a few years ago. And I mean, the mind can make connections, but then I could tell when I'm channeling too. And so he passed away a few years ago, and today at the group, I was realizing fairly quickly, not when we were sitting in the waiting room area, and two other people from the group, although one had some mobility issues. Like the waiting room was quite busy, but there was only three of us that went in there, and then someone else came afterwards. And she looked really familiar, and she was very quiet, and there was just really familiar about her. But I've only met. I'm not saying where the group is or whatever, but I've only met two Lauries in my life, I think. And ironic because of Ontario connections and office agencies. Um, but and even being online a lot, I don't really feel like I see the name very often, much like another name. So there were so many coincidences. And yeah, but what I didn't realize is I realized that this guy reminded me of somebody else. And I mean, some people could say, oh, he's just a older, gray haired, chubby, larger guy. That means I'm mean in saying that. Yes, but there was something. He actually mentioned something about having and he was a little almost too detailed on a couple of health, physical things that had happened to him. But one of the things actually was eye related, and I don't know if I would have noticed. I mean, I was mostly sitting to the side of him, and he was, he said he wasn't good on one-to-one talk. Uh, but I mean, we all have to be sometimes, and he certainly was a talker. Like we were going to go around the room and kind of introduce ourselves, and the first lady was fairly brief, and then he started, but he had a lot of interesting things to say, a lot of interesting stories and such and such. And my name first came out when this other person came in and had a rhyming name, and so I thought it was too crowded, and I also felt if we're going to do the introductions, I want to get to mine because I'm technically going to be next if it ever happens, kind of thing. And I felt if she took another spot, then it would be her, and I don't know. And we didn't really finish with that, but one of the members did kind of say we're all here kind of under this reason, but we're not talking anything about it. And she says, and she was like, it's fine, and to just have random chat or whatever, and there's the benefits in that. And so she kind of was a bit more direct in kind of making some questions and circling back around a couple times. Um, but yeah, so I recognized that this guy seemed familiar, and I knew it wasn't the one who passed away because I don't really believe in reincarnation in that way. But I didn't make the connection at the time that he looked like somebody from the place where I knew the person, also knew the person that had passed away of the condition that kind of brought me to even being there. And I also mentioned how I wasn't out of town and I was almost going to be out of town. And but I remember seeing that. I don't think it's during that work the what do they call it, vendor. It doesn't actually say that he has any siblings. Hmm. Anywho, so I can put a bit more in here. I do that sometimes. It's like I don't fill it all the way though. Uh, it's interesting actually that he had only been there twice because, and they didn't even do a lot of housekeeping stuff or whatever. But I'm going to try and be vague and anonymous. But because he said that had the condition for 10 years and was lazy and wasn't doing much about it and this and that. And he actually didn't sound like he said that, with medical stuff, it's good to always have someone in your corner, kind of. He said his wife and his daughter, they would come with like things and be making notes and this and that. And he said he was no good at that kind of stuff, which I was really surprised because he, like I say, was quite a talker. A couple of weeks ago, this is all, unfortunately, it's only every two months. There was someone there for 2 minutes, or every 2 weeks rather. And a couple of weeks ago, when I went in, I thought the one at the front desk had said that it was canceled. There was one other person and it got canceled, or they canceled, or something like that. And I somewhat tried to clarify that, and the leader didn't seem to know anything really even of it. Um, but it's so ironic. A while back, some of you may remember that, and I'm actually back there tomorrow for 11:45. I must remember that it's almost 11:45 duration, or 11:30 maybe. So I bring my bike and everything. That when I took a workshop at this place, there was somebody with the same first name happened to sit next to me. It was one of the last few seats that could be taken. I mean, even if she'd been in the room, I would have seen something to that. But the same first name as the one that I know that passed away of the thing that office works pretty largely around. Um, and then apparently the leader of the group, and I remember because she said she did intake. And so I kind of did a little bit of an intake. And, but I'm curious to see, and I don't have plans, and I must remember, even though I don't know how easy it would be to put things together, but I must remember. I don't know if it's going to be a little cooler out tomorrow. I don't necessarily want to roll things that might make it harder to. And she doesn't do her own scheduling. She had to go to the front desk and find out. She was pretty sure she had availability, and that's why I had to bring my bike and everything all the way. But that's fine. Um, she probably couldn't give rides, and I don't know, but I'm tempted because I said that it's easy to bike with, but that's without folding it. I'll have to figure that out because somebody mentioned how the walls were kind of plain, and near the end was the first time she also mentioned that the room echoed, and I would be sensitive to that, and I didn't notice it. I thought I was starting to notice it after she mentioned it, after this lady mentioned it, but yeah, they were saying we should each bring a piece of art, and yeah, we have lots of art, and we have some that is just paper, and I told her it could just be put up and this and that. But yeah, the group leader had the same name. She also said one of the ones at the front desk has the same name. I says this place is full of them. And then of course my friend, uh, in spirit. I was thinking about some. I heard a name on the radio today that reminded me. It's a member of parliament that in 2015 was running here in Canada, and still is. Ironically, for an area that one of the people came from today. I mean, this place that I was at only has two offices. And yeah, and unfortunately, she had to deal with handy transit. And I cannot remember her name, but it's kind of ironic because she kind of did remind me of somebody. Uh, and bada, 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 bada. But she only has one other sibling, so uh, or one of what one daughter, this person, and one son. So yeah, but anywho, basically, and actually, I did happen to say because it's kind of interesting. Where I'm from in Ontario, uh, and he didn't really say a hard agree, but he did kind of seem to be thinking that, and yeah, he wasn't from the area either. Um, I'm so glad mobile and not having to take that on request bus with that stupid driver that did that stupid thing. But I don't exactly know how to spell the last name. It could have one of two different spellings. Huh. There was some things that were very specific about the guy to the point where I probably shouldn't say them because it might become more obvious. Um, I don't know if this is him or not, and he hasn't posted since 2022. If it is, anyway, I was just kind of curious because he lived in my hometown. It's very ironic because the lady that looked a bit like someone else I know has a mother named Marie. He was from two places. One, it was a big city, but like small towns, about 15, 20-minute drives from that city. And one of the places he lived, and he hadn't been there, I think he said, since the 90s, early 90s, and I was talking early 2000s, mostly. And so, yeah, when you said, oh, I don't know anything about smog or pollution, but it also could have been the factories. But anyway, uh, I have a cousin, Marie, that lived there in Chatham. And he also, yeah, and then my hometown. And I saw him reading at the bus stop. So I kind of went a little bit backtracked once I read around kind of out of the parking lot and, kind of said something about, I can't remember what the first thing I said was, but one of the first things was asking him, out of curiosity, what's your last name? There's certain last names that are very common in that area. And then I can't remember exactly how the conversation went, and this isn't exactly sequential, but he happened to mention that he has an in-law, a sister-in-law actually, in the same place that my spouse's sister-in-law is, and she just got back actually from in and around that area, because he mentioned Vancouver Island a week or two ago, I think he said, and she sounds like a really interesting lady. And he looked like I say, like the person from the place where I knew this person from. I mean, I wasn't seeing this, I promise. Um, and yeah, if I was really specific, it might be people that know him. Again, I'm not. I'm not. I haven't said the name of the agency. I haven't really said his name, so I don't know. I mean, one of the things that was interesting is that he does not live with his wife. Uh, she's in a completely other town in the province. Sounds like he sees her fairly often, but it must be scary to live alone, especially when you have all these health problems that he's having. And she runs a 10-room bed and breakfast in a church that used to be a church. Actually, I almost remember what it's called, and I kind of want to look it up. I bet it's very pretty. Uh, I just don't know if I couldn't tell if that's a commercial or not. I just don't want YouTube to get mad that I have music playing in the background, so I'm trying to keep it on talk radio. Um. So yeah. I have to refer to my notes. I got some of it out there just kind of naturally. Yeah. So kind of today. I mean, I understand this may only be interesting to me, but I don't know. It's as the video title says, it's kind of a, and I almost didn't get it all in. I had to kind of shorten a couple words and this and that, but it's kind of a, you know, talking about our days, seeing the special in a day. I know it can be hard sometimes to see good, you know, to see good in our lives. There's so much, you know, hard stuff going on, in our own lives, in general, and so it's, I think, good to stop and look at these things, and also a reminder of being aware of signs and symbols and messages from our loved ones. Um, honest and truly, if I hadn't received any, um, I would have still thought they might be around. In fact, I almost did a podcast today, and after this one, I'm going to rest for a bit, and then I've got a big event happening tonight at a place that actually, and I finally made it to the group. Like I say, it's every couple of weeks. One had been canceled, but that's actually where I was the day before I found out that my friend passed away. it was a week afterwards or whatever. But you can't know everything instantly. Um, and it was I'll never forget the event that it was, and it was basically a fashion show, and I was so in my element. Unfortunately, I don't feel like I get these opportunities very often. I mean, there was a bit of wait ahead of time, but the people that were closest to me, they were talking a little bit with who they came with, I think, or whoever they were sitting with, but they really weren't networking very much. They didn't name anybody. It wasn't, the check-in people walking through in the same area the models were coming through, which may have been hard to prevent, but there were washrooms within that area, so I don't know. Anywho, and basically, they were just filtering through them, and they may have said designer names or whatever, and it was very cool because it was an opportunity to just take photos, and I wasn't the only one doing it, and it felt like a step up in a career interest. But then that event finished and things faded, and then I had a really weird experience uh, trying to keep momentum going, and also I haven't heard back from the place either. But and it was actually my spouse that reached out. So but yeah, this morning started with hearing this name on the radio that made me think of a friend that passed away, not of this condition, but whatever. I hadn't really. And she joked. She loved coffee, and that was a strong coffee there today. And the leader said that she drinks 4 cups of coffee a day, and the other guy there said he drinks 6. I'm thinking, whoa, and obviously, I mean, I'm hoping it's decaf, because diabetes. And then also, how, like, they're older, or one's older and retired. The other one, I understand. When you have a busy life, you feel like you want to be, although it's really hot out right now. Somebody was saying last Monday locally was like 70 something years since we've had such a hot May, uh, early May too. But there's still another group this month, so I'm happy about that. But yeah, I mean, the retired guy, like, can't. I wouldn't imagine he can nap when he's having 6 cups of coffee, and that may or may not be contributing to his health problem. But anyway, I almost didn't process it, but I did while there. While I was waiting, it was about 20 minutes early. It got there the same time as the lady in wheelchair. I saw a magazine, and it didn't hugely resonate with me, but there was only one copy as well as a nutrition thing, and I saw a magazine. And I mean, I've talked about it a couple times on this channel, and feel free to share what's been special about your day so far, even if it's, somebody was just there for a moment, and for anybody that watches afterwards. Even, I mean, like I say, sometimes we kind of don't think to stop and look, for such things, or it's harder to see sometimes, honestly. But even in a short period of time, there's got to be something special that's happened, right? But I haven't been to a group in a while, and actually, one of the guys had mentioned going to a coffee group, and he said something about how he lived in an apartment. He didn't really socialize or really see very many other people that lived there, which I couldn't figure that out. And he was talking about high rises, and actually, the place where I knew the one that passed, the 2 people, one which he reminded me of, like I say, that passed away. I actually kind of did live in a high rise, 4th floor, but and I was kind of thinking about it a little bit lately too of that, and basically, um, oh, so I said, "Oh, is this like a coffee group in your building?" And he said, "No, they opened a charity apartment, I think he said, and I'm not sure if that's the same place where they actually have opened like an apartment for homeless people." I know I'm kind of being specific, but nobody's here watching at the moment anyway. But looking back to my notes, but yeah, it was interesting that I happened to pick up a magazine for the first time in ages, just a freebie thing, because I I feel mixed about having had this kind of job, but I was, you know, in my early 20s. It was an easy job to get. I needed money for a trip and, you know, help my mother out, this and that. And we sold magazines. And like I say, oh, right. I was reminded of it before I even went there. And I felt like, her and my other friend were going to say, we'll try and be with you throughout your day. These signs made me realize, yeah, for sure that they were. Oh, he's on the radio now, eh? Humbug. Gorge, Baba Joe. At least the number of the don't care. You all right? Just a moment. Okay. Whew. You know, and I could be talking about another place. If you caught that, it might not be where I live. So. Yeah, it was funny. I arrived there with wheels, my bike, as somebody in a wheelchair also arrived there. It's interesting because there was a typo on tonight's menu or an abbreviation. It's actually kind of ironic considering the title. Like, I'm going to be having an extra fancy dinner, and I don't do those all that often. And yeah, it has to be between 5:30 and 6. I mean, I told him, you're not going to be home very long. Initially, when I said get a ride, I mean, although in general maybe it was, because then you can be home a little bit longer before we have to leave. Maybe it's almost like go right from one to the other. But I think that it was sort of planned so that of course for 4 hours, so that they're not finishing too late because they have all this other stuff they got to do in it, and also so that maybe people would have a brief time and then dinner time. I mean, we eat late because often have a late afternoon, early evening nap, and then a couple of other routine things, and then we finally get to dinner. So I mean, and sometimes it takes prep. So I don't know what this part of my note that says amp locks auto means, but I just heard Ray. It just says, "Hey bud, just wanted to say I'm so glad that you had a nice time at the group today." And she's saying, "I hope that did your soul some good," is what she's saying. And you know, people talk different ways that they maybe don't often talk. Or now that she's passed away, maybe she communicates a little differently. I don't know if I could see her saying that when she was alive, but I'm not going to doubt it because I've had so many experiences that I know how real they are. And every now and then I'll experience, is this my mind saying this or am I channeling? But usually I can tell. And she's joking, are you doubting me, bud? um and yeah, we talked about how easy it is to develop these things, this and that, and how quickly things. This one person who was in a wheelchair and partially amputated within the past year, and when she was talking to just me, when a couple other people were kind of in another part of the area, um, I can't remember why it came up, but she said that she was pretty new with her prosthetic and not good. But then she kind of said the opposite to the leader. But unless I missed something, I don't know. Or was trying to say that by the time she takes her trip, um, another cancer um, diagnosis in her family too. Um, that I wasn't watching, but I did know the name of the place. Another and also and the guy had connections to France, and I said my brother lives there. My brother's also lived in England. Blah blah, but um, it sounded like there was a few causes, but one of the causes was neuropathy, and I don't want to skip. I'm playing this back, but I mean, you know, I don't know. Maybe there'll be progression. I gotta think, for the most part, that exercise and good eating helps. But I don't know. The leader and one other person were saying, and maybe the person that just tuned in has knowledge about this. And regardless of how far into your day you're in, I'd love to hear something positive that's happened for you. or something special. And if there hasn't been something, I was going to say let's make something, but you laughed. But anyway, was saying that there really is no cure. Um, there really is no cure, and you can't get rid of it. I think is what they said. And I said, well, I'm a little bit in fear then, because I mean, in a few years, this could be, I could be, essentially immobile. And like she was a little graphic with her health condition too, and she said, her foot was really red, and then it something certain. And I don't even want to repeat it. And that and part of me thinks sometimes doctors aren't great. Part of me also thinks sometimes things are hard to detect, even when you are a medical worker, and then the body's going to do what it does. You know, I feel a little bit, I don't know what to think with the fact that one of the things I found out is that, at least in our province or possibly Canada wide, diabetes medication is going to soon be um, covered by something is taking took place in April. So like 2 months after my lovely friend passed away, and I know she's in a better place, as people sometimes use that phrase, and and still lives on in a different way. I do. I strongly feel, but it's yeah. The leader didn't even know the reviewers, but maybe she wasn't leading it either. Um, to think that it could have been preventable, because I'll never forget that her uncle said that or I overheard somebody saying, at her funeral, that she'd maybe missed missed taking some of her medications for some reason. And he's got to get his from the pharmacy soon, but I don't think he's completely out. But either, I don't know if that, I mean, these things become so routine with certain health conditions, but at the same time, they also become such a hassle. Sometimes it's like, oh, I just feel like skipping it today, or especially if you're somebody that's kind of iffy about medication, no matter how used to it you are, there might be days where you think, ah, I don't want any side effects that come with it. I mean, because sure, maybe with some medication, your body gets used to it and you start to not notice them. Some of them may always be there, but sometimes you need them. I don't know. It's just, um, or maybe she ran. I mean, Canada, they say stuff about free healthcare, and this was, there and that. Well, I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I do know that he's trying to stick his fingers in our country and do things, you know, like tariffs or whatever. But I overheard while I was waiting a phone call that she was doing a bunch of reminder calls. I don't know if I'm going to get one about my appointment tomorrow, but and yeah, they just didn't need help. They have students coming in, and the person who was running the volunteers was not very organized. And I think she had recently switched her, because I got an email from one person first, and then suddenly, without very much communication, and suddenly coming from this other person, I think she just thought, yeah, oh yeah, we need. Oh no, I guess we don't. Um, I mean, I already go to my thing. If it asks me to sign in, then I won't. But I already kind of do on here. So just want to quickly check something. And I got a little bit distracted, but I was still 20 minutes early. Biking was a bit quicker than walking, and it was a nice breeze this morning, and even on the way back, it was kind of there. But we need rain. The dust is just blowing around. But yeah, I got a little bit distracted by a couple of emails. I can only remember. Oh, right. The other one I didn't reply to yet. But okay, so this is loading, hopefully. Um, very slowly. Slowest I've ever seen it. I know the other day when 21 minutes in on that one. Okay. Um, Yeah, the group apparently, I can't remember how long she says it. So the historic answer, it says, "Oh, that long it's been around." No, she was saying that it had been without a leader for 6 months, and it's been back for 2 months, and it's been slow. So actually, right around when my friend passed, I don't remember when it was coming. But anyway, um, I don't know if she would have benefited. The place was always open, as far as I know. So I mean, but when she had said she'd been in July, she told me she'd been in the hospital not that long ago, a couple of years prior. This place closes for July. I don't know if that's, but she lived for, like I say, 3 or 4 years beyond that. Um, yeah, there was somebody there whose grandmother had farmed, uh, mostly fruit trees. It sounded like, but either way, uh, into the age of 102, and that was a little after me mentioning someone who I know of who was 105 for a couple months now. Um, what did I have here, and did I keep it there to paste back? No. Um, I should have sent it through. And the guy that talked a little bit about, he moved to our city because of his grandparents. I mean, he's older, and his grandparents have probably been gone for quite a long time now. But that's why I moved here. It was interesting. He mentioned a part of our city and in a place that actually is a venue for our theater festival, although it doesn't sound like it was part of that. And I don't really want to say what the documentary was that he's seen, but that was the last place that I saw my friend, in person, and possibly the last time I talked with her too. Before, yeah. Um, Somebody was mentioning somebody's funeral. I can't remember why, but 79-year record since we've had this heat. I really should not. Oh my god! If I don't have to, and there's actually one in that very room, which is interesting. It's like almost a separate building because yeah, it's not a good thing. I mean, I've heard recently about bladder cancer. People having bladder cancer. I never knew of that condition. It's a new type of cancer in my knowledge and awareness, and I got to be very careful. Also, pancreas stuff. Yeah. And my chest was, I haven't had the tight chest. I wouldn't say because it didn't really go into the ribs. It was more up here. And I've had that on and off for over the past number of weeks. It has been about a week or so, maybe almost two, but that was being noticed again today. So, but I have a kind of a great question to possibly ask. Um, if somebody was here currently, I could ask it while I'm quickly away from screen, and it would give them a time. I mean, not that some people can't multitask and listen and type at the same time, but maybe I'll just leave you wondering what that is by the red pillow there. And I don't know. You're gonna see when I get up, but I'll be back. Oh, 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 oh. Yeah, I didn't chat with her. I was wondering if I was going to chat first night. Great. I thought there was only going to be one other person there. So because this buffet banquet event thing is happening during the week, I'm unsure. I mean, part of me thinks, okay, so nobody's watching right now, but I just brought over some a portfolio essentially, which I need to keep getting opportunities to work on mine. But this is more the other owner of the channel's um, artwork, and he has a lot of it. And then we have lots of art in general. So yeah, it's weird. It hadn't. I was focusing more on the people and the conversation, and usually I would take in my environment a little bit better too, but I really kind of wasn't. I mean, it was nice, and they had a row with some snacks and drinks, and then they had another table in the front, and had to make sure they didn't forget my bike and leave without it, because so I put my bag where I'd have to kind of turn and notice it. Uh, but yeah, it's true, and she's totally open to having art in the room. I think she said it was kind of they just kind of you know we opened the space or something like that. Unlike the Indian restaurant or a Middle Eastern restaurant nearby, that aside from a bit of a film trigger, I'm avoiding it because they had just opened. They didn't have much on their wall. We had some perfect art we could have offered them, and they were interested. But part of me would like to go through those in case there's some that he doesn't want to sell. But actually, any downstairs, I believe, are for sale. So maybe that's where I should look. And then it's just a matter of, like, I say I can bike with them, but I don't know if I can. Because at first I was thinking, oh, I could roll them or whatever, but then they're harder to stay flat. But you know what? You put them on a table, put some heavy stuff on them for a little while, keep them to flatten them out again, and then tape them on a wall, and you're good to go. So yeah, I might. That's something I can do today, and then I have something now planned tomorrow. Go back there for an appointment. So you never know. Like that was not on my necessarily on my radar, and it's with her too. Like I forget what she called herself, but it sounds like she does a few things there. Um, like other than her name, I forget what she called herself. But I think it was front desk, which is kind of said the same way as my friend. But yeah, because I don't have an easy way to necessarily get it there otherwise. So no, that works. And I do have recently a bunch of new hair band thingies, so I can use those, roll them up, put them in a bag, and go there. And probably be there for a couple hours, and that's great. Because after today and with yesterday, I didn't really have a whole lot planned until their barbecue actually, which is in like almost 2 weeks. It's just I don't know. Things have been a bit slower lately, kind of, sort of, but than they used to be. I wish I could remember where that lady's familiar. At first, I thought it was because she reminded me of a Nicole I know, and maybe that's all it is. Is she just had some similarities to her, also new from a group. Actually, that place has some new ones starting up, but it's too far to get to, and it's for people with adult children that have a certain condition. But yeah, because like I say, I haven't met that many people with her first name. Not that it's rare, kind of like this other name I'm kind of alluding to. A male name is a bit more rare, but it's kind of interesting that he mentioned. Okay, so as I'm in, one of the things that was mentioned in the group that I thought was pretty cool was the idea of everybody, because he said something to the effect of, I should write a book, or I've been told that he should write a book, and the viewer left. I'll do that again in a moment. Um, I need to try and pull it back. I think what this is saying, because I do remember noting it and seeing where I put this note. I was just kind of making notes of interesting things that I wanted to look back at um, on my phone. Um, but I think this is saying that these monitor things are normally $89. They give the first one as a demo one for free, and they're $89 every 2 months. So I mean, I might, and there was something that she had said which made it sound like there was other things that they had to. When you're new to something, you are very much in a learning stage. You are very much kind of, um, you're very much kind of. Was it already 1:22? Good golly, Miss Molly, has this ever opened? No, I don't know why this being so. Oh, yes, it has, but I don't need it now. Um, but But yeah, that's a very good point. When you're having health problems going on, you need somebody in your corner. Not only doctors, like somebody sometimes with you for your doctor's appointment. I mean, you could have an appointment and then tell whoever you want afterwards about it, I suppose. Doesn't should necessarily be a secret because everybody's different, but everybody's also very alike. And people have maybe had experiences with conditions that the doctor's never gotten the condition. I mean, I don't know. Doesn't have the lived experience. I don't know. Not all doctors are great. That's the other part of it. Um, but yeah, and she listed a whole bunch of reasons as to why some people might not want testing with prick, and none of them were if you're queasy, or she listed 4 or 5. But yeah, going to start being covered by insurance, and it does kind of piss me off a little bit. Like maybe my friend could have lived a little bit longer. I don't know. But then, well, one of the kind of starter medications for this particular condition, um, it can do all kinds of things. Like the one that she had kidney issues when she was very, very young. But that still doesn't make any sense. I'd be curious to know if he's related to that guy. But no, I mean the obituary doesn't seem the same, so it's not easy to get Wi-Fi there. But I can't remember. Yeah, he had a cell phone, I think. Yeah, that yellow person had a cell phone. So you can look him up and say, "See, you're twins." There's that amp again. I don't know what that's about. I don't know if I should share this. Nobody's watching right now, and we're quite far into this video, so I'm kind of thinking maybe it came up. I could tell that this girl had tattoos and possibly some sort of brace on or something. I couldn't tell for sure, but it says, "Does your leg say lock?" And she says, "It says look, look, lock." Okay, mumbled it. But it was so ironic, especially having the same first name, and how when she was dying, I'm sure her loved ones were there saying, "Look alive, fake it till you make it." Yeah, it's weird that she didn't mention the echo until like I think her ears were just doing things with her. Maybe after staying in there, but the lighting was great. I mean, for privacy, and also I think to not let quite as much sun in. The windows were partially frosted. Uh, I don't think we had lights on in the room. I mean, everybody seemed to. I mean, it wasn't dark either, though. It was pretty much the lighting I'm used to, and that's good because I can be sensitive. I know I mentioned I took a workshop there ages ago, and I was under a bunch of fluorescent lights in a small, kind of stuffy, crowded room, and there were a couple of times where I felt lightheaded. Um, my health was maybe doing more things back then, but it's the thing. The body's always doing stuff, and and most of us, most of us say, "Oh, I had no idea I was going there." It was actually your good leg that ended up being the problem. I don't know. I don't know. I saw my ex. 5129. I saw my ex kind of looking through, um, standing in between the doorway having a conversation. She never actually went fully in, and I don't know what that was about. She didn't seem to be getting worked up, and she, many, many years ago, was often fairly worked up. Um, I've now recognized two people that could potentially be awkward there. So until I'm in a room but they advertise things, it'd be great if these were the same people all the time, and this and that. I don't know how mixed, how varied it's going to be, but they advertise things, and that's good. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known about it. But I don't know. I don't want to always be in a mask, and I think I do have kind of a unique voice. I might just have to say don't want to talk about, if I'm asked about a certain thing. And as far as what's the face, I mean, I don't know. That was a little awkward, but I was still in the group at the time. We could just kind of see the entrance. But that's something I almost do want to keep in this note. That way, I remember next time I go there, this guy's in a mask. And it's interesting. Like it was from many years ago, and she was kind of dense. She's actually in my neighborhood too. And she didn't seem to recognize me. It didn't seem like she was trying to not. It's just I don't know. I mean, it was in a hectic area though, a hectic environment. Ironically, a food bank. Um, which, by the way, if I can't volunteer at it, maybe I can benefit from it. Next when I'm there tomorrow, I should find out when is it again. At this point, it doesn't look like they need volunteers. But now that I'm in your system and seemingly entering this world, I can benefit from it. Uh, Voicemail done. Oh, I thought the dog would be sitting up. It's not. Yeah, so this is not the one I want to look at. I'm tempted to crash down on the couch. I'm tempted to show some of the artwork that I'm talking about because it is really impressive. And the interesting thing is that a lot of them don't take actually that much. Don't take a lot to make them. Like I said, I didn't, and you have to have certain kind of like it has to be um, certain. I actually might want to YouTube how to make them. That's something else I'm going to look at. But yeah, we did get a bunch of hair ties, and then I can just have them after that. I actually think I have mostly worked through my notes though, so then I might do that. I had a little bit to eat while I was out, a little bit beforehand, and we're going to be eating a lot tonight. And I'm just with the heat and everything so drained to even. Okay, but there's a couple things I wanted to remember to do. While I'm thinking about it here. Guess that site still exists. And I have actually seen. I have actually seen on nails. Okay, that's weird. Okay, so it went 1, 3, 2 loaded. Okay, so I'll look at that in a moment. I'm almost worked my way through this. So I'm just putting something in the comments that looks a lot shorter once it's sent through. Not that it was super long or took me long to write. I verbalized that because somebody tuned in, but then they left. I do think I selected it to show live chat afterwards, just in case it doesn't. It's there though because I could type something and not send it through, and it might go away. I've noticed. So, not racking talking. And I could have overheard Max a little bit more if we weren't also talking in the room I was in. People in that room, because, like I said, she didn't seem like she was really worked up, but she certainly seemed kind of noisy. The leader not only had the same name as my friend that passed away, she had a similar laugh. And I actually thought she had some similarities in her facial features. I mean, I don't know. That's the kind of thing. There's a lot of variety in what people's faces and stuff look like, but yet, a face is a face. It's got a mouth, nose, two eyes. Most of the time, ears. All the components. There isn't a lot of variety, but I don't know. It was kind of interesting that both new. I think all of us were new to the group, not only because it just got started again, but I think all of us were kind of just new to this health stuff. And I'm not even sure how much I relate to it, but it's nice to have the social group. It's like say only twice a month, unfortunately, and if it ever gets canceled, they don't do it on the different day. They just have to wait till the next already set in stone date. Even though I asked her how often she's there because I guess for bringing the art, and she says that she's there. I think she said Tuesday to Friday or something like that. Sibley. That's only Sibley Eben is what it typed while I was out. What I meant is only been. And one thing I did get out is my reasons why I was there, and nobody said, "Oh no, you can't." I mean, I have, like I said, done intake. I'm not sure what to think about, but tomorrow, but there is one group that for sure I'd be able to go to there, and the other one, it really is. It's a social group, and I mean, health conditions can pop up so easily, and we were all agreeing that something can be connected to something else, which can lead to something else, and blah blah. And there's certain things that are sometimes hard to put in place in our lives, which can lead to things if we don't, and perhaps even if we do. Like that's the other thing. I mean, like I think my friend was monitoring her condition. She lived a fairly active lifestyle. It may be what you could consider balance, but I mean, between work and hanging out with friends and family stuff, she did. Like she was an active person. She had a laid back personality, but she was an active person. And I mean, maybe, and her father had said that she was a picky eater, although she would sometimes post about, and she worked in food industry a little bit. She didn't sound like one to me, but when you are, I mean that, but you can't, it doesn't feel right to force feed yourself either, make yourself eat something. Luckily tonight, the buffet is gluten free. Ironic after, and it finally did come out that I'm supposedly weekly positive, but that can change quickly for celiac. You know, I mean, I don't know. It's good to be on top of your health, especially if even if life is hard sometimes. You know, the few loved ones that you do have in your life, you wouldn't want to kind of pass away on them, and you don't like discomfort. But one thing that I definitely want to be doing is looking at holistic options, looking at like groups and counseling and nutrition and stuff like that. If I can avoid medication, which whether it's a doctor or psychiatrist, they're more likely to want to go that route. I'm just looking at notes from while I was out. Somebody was there, so I thought I should say, but they left, and I care too much. I don't think I said this at the beginning, but while I was upstairs before I came downstairs, I happened to look out a window. It kind of came, it actually randomly came up. Oh my goodness. And I wish I could remember why, but it was interesting because in recent videos, I kind of was mentioning something that's kind of happening, or something that kind of happened with a neighbor. I can't remember what the details was, but the one lady had said something about, well, it's good, to have somebody being watchful, if something looks odd or whatever. And I says, yeah, in fact, we have a neighbor that, you know, overly paranoid and that we don't know super well, kind of across the street, and somebody was briefly, but that said not to watch the place. I said, but it can be a good thing, especially some of the things we sometimes hear about, not super active anymore, but and I mean, like I've said, and like Ray really helped me in one of the recent videos, kind of reformat my feelings around it. Well, not entirely, like said I didn't do anything all that wrong, and I'm a good person and that kind of stuff. But yeah, but it's kind of like oh, maybe maybe one thing I can tell myself is, okay, don't watch that place too much then, because then if anything sketchy happens, as much as, but you know what, it's also good to know, because it could happen to anybody. But part of me thinks, well, they deserve it. I mean, I'm not going to do it, but I'm not going to stop it. Maybe, I don't know. But then I'm a good person. I don't know, but I don't want the computation. Blah blah. Maybe if I do happen to see something and I happen to get an opportunity, maybe I'd say, I happen to notice, and I'm sorry that like you're in such close proximity, it's hard not to look in that direction sometimes. But I did happen to notice this, and maybe you should be a little bit thankful that I'm telling you. Um, Neighbors looking out for neighbors. Um, I can say that after even if it was a short little thing they said to me, uh, and I'm kind of glad it wasn't in person. After that happened, I kind of, I ambivalent, but yeah, it's and it's in a lovely dude and chick as I was coming home. Private number. Hello. Ah. Hopefully they'll leave a voicemail. Anyway, this is getting long. I need to rest, and I may or may not be on the phone in a moment. I thought it was him calling back before hearing my voicemail, but it said private number, so that doesn't seem like it was.